All right, today we're doing a threefer. These were all, well, we're gonna have Linda, Bryce, and Bob. Linda didn't really have a whole lot to tell because she was there for a whole whopping total of 10 months. So she didn't have a whole lot of time to accumulate a whole lot of stories, but I didn't want to leave her out because she participated. And then Bryce, he is another one of the guys that he's had some medical issues, and his memory's been leaving him pretty fast. So he tried. And same thing, I didn't want to leave him out because he participated. And then our last video, which is going to be the longest segment of it, is Bob. And Bob was actually a really cool guy. He only worked there for, I think, 3 years in total, and he spent his entire 3 years in one department, and I think he spent it on one department on one shift. I don't even think he moved shifts. So same thing, he wasn't really there long enough, and since he didn't move around a whole lot, he didn't get a whole lot of stories in, but he worked on some cool stuff, or he made some cool parts while he was there. He was in machining. So, and I wish I'd have had more camera memory to keep it rolling, because after they got done talking about the Oliver stuff, Bob and Al started talking. They were both in Vietnam. They weren't together. They were on two completely different ends of the country. But they started talking about some of their exploits in Vietnam, and those made for some cool stories. It's not very often that you find Vietnam combat vets that are willing to talk about what they did, and they had some cool stories from Vietnam. So I wish I'd had more camera to get that, because that would have been a cool little video on its own. But anyhow, without further ado, here's Linda, Bryce, and Bob.
I'm Linda, and I worked there from February 1st of 71 until the end of October of 71 in the White Farm corporate office that was in the Oliver plant in Chelsea.
So, White corporate.
We did all the
that
work.
that was was technically separate from.
Yeah, and I was technically in the bookkeeping. I had did all the invoicing and payment records for all the dealers in, I think it was Kansas, Nebraska, maybe Colorado. I can't remember all the states, but I had a western region that I did all the posting for.
What kind of stuff did that entail?
Invoices and then payments made. Just regular bookkeeping things with their accounts for the dealers.
How did, I guess, what made you decide to try to get in there?
Well, I was new to the area and I was getting married and I needed a job. And somebody said you should go down to White. So I did. There was quite a few of us in the office. I would guess in that big room there was probably 60 or 80 of us, but I'm not sure about that. Basically sat at a desk and had a posting machine and posted invoices and payments all day long.
Anything interesting happened to you while you were there? In your short tenure there?
Not really, I guess. It was a nice atmosphere. It was a nice place to work. I had good supervisors, good bosses. And then shortly after, when I went on maternity leave, then there was rumors that they were going to be moving the office to Illinois. And then by the time I was ready to go back, it was pretty much final. They were going to move the offices. We all had the chance to go, but I was married to a farmer, so I didn't go.
And you already told us, but I guess, again, why you ended up having to leave, or why they made you leave.
Well, I was in the corporate office, but I had to walk through part of the manufacturing plant to get to the office, and there was no pregnancy policy in place for corporate. So we went by the union rules for the plant, and I had to take leave when I was 6 months pregnant.
No, I guess it's weird that. So I guess the plant would have been considered White Farm, and then since you were corporate, that would have been White Motor.
White Farm.
So I guess that's weird.
Well, what bothers me is why that was in the union
Yeah.
regulation.
Yeah, there was another gal that was pregnant at the same time, and I guess they just thought it was best to go by union rules in case anything would happen. I don't know. We weren't union people. I mean, we weren't part of the union as far as corporate employees.
Huh.
But it was coming winter, and I didn't care if I stayed home.
You had Marvin to take care of.
Yeah, couldn't take care of him.
And then after that, you went to work for a dealership.
And then I was a stay-at-home mom until '84, and then I went to the local Lens Implement. Was a local dealership that sold White Farm stuff. Oliver, he had sold Oliver, Minneapolis Moline, the whole line for years. He'd been in business a long time. And I worked. Then it was sold in 2000, and it was sold in 95. I worked there from 84 to 95. It was sold, and I worked another 10 years for the new owner. So when it closed, I was 4 months shy of 20 years in that building.
Now, you dealt with billing and that. Did you do any parts counter stuff?
No,
Okay.
it was strictly a corporate office.
No, I mean. when you
Oh,
were
at
Rogers?
Lenses? Oh, yeah.
I thought so.
Yeah, I would help in the parts department when they were really busy. I can remember the days when we'd have 4 and 5 farmers lined up at the counter, and there was 3 of us working parts, 4 of us sometimes, but
Now, did you do the
I didn't do
purchase
the
orders?
ordering. I did a lot of the putting away and keeping the inventory, and then when we went to computer, I put everything on the computer, which took, I don't know if you ever saw those old parts things that they had that were about that high, and cards. They had a card for every
okay.
part. And it took me weeks and weeks and weeks to get all that into the computer. But, and I put parts away, and I did inventory a lot. I'd help whenever they needed help out there.
You do there.
I started out, I was hired, they're moving service stores. And basically we just package stuff up and pallet it up, and then they take it, they're moving it out to some other town. Got doing that, and then when that got done, and then I got hired in the foundry, I got to keep my man number. Was in a small core room in the foundry. Just sanding cores before they went into the foundry to get bored.
So you were building the molds.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, building the molds. Yeah, and then I worked there for a few years and bid into the shop, number 1 shop. Well, I think I worked in number 7 shop. Was there?
Well, number 1 was
Across
been
the
up by the
street.
gears and that,
Yeah,
on
right.
the west end.
Yeah, at first I worked same side as the office, I think it was.
Yeah, been up
On
where
the
the
big-
corporate stuff
Yeah,
was.
the
Yeah,
big wheels.
yeah. And that's the big wheels.
Yeah.
The big wheels.
Yeah,
Yeah, that had been up past heat treat a little bit.
mm-hmm. The slingers, remember where they were at?
Well, we're on 2 different pages now. You're in the foundry?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was talking somewhere else.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the slingers were in the foundry. And the core room I had was right across the aisle from the Slingers. The corner room I was at.
Yeah.
You know, Danny Britton, know him at all?
No, I don't.
He's a
I didn't
little-
get over in the foundry very much.
He was running that machine to make the cores, smaller cores. The whole time I was there before I bid it into the shop, running the lathe.
And then you said you ran and went bid into the shop, and then you went up number one
Yeah.
end.
Yeah, number
Yeah.
one then made them small gears on the lathe. Had an operation, drilled them out and cut them to size to be geared.
That put them in the hob.
Yeah,
the
but go
gear
to
hob.
gear hob next, yeah. Did that on third shift, quite a bit on third shift. I worked. It was pretty, not so much going on third shift, pretty quiet and fewer people.
That's generally the best part about third shift.
Kind of like that. They also so many people around all over. Got to be too much.
Yeah, you probably weren't the only person that had that.
A lot of people ended up going up to see the nurse.
Well, sometimes then the guards work on you if,
Yeah,
if there
on
was
third
the
shift,
nurse
the nurse
wasn't there.
wasn't around, then the guard would take a needle and pick a piece of iron out of your eye and stuff.
Highly qualified.
At the time, I don't think you really cared. Just get it out of my eye.
Yeah, I wanted it out of my eye. Yeah.
And then you migrated down into the cast iron machining area.
Yeah, did work there for a while. And then, yeah, mostly I was on them little gears and working there. In the foundry, the small core room. And that was,
You said that you worked on the Bullard, and that was a big vertical lathe
yeah,
that did all the cast wheels.
yeah. Drug a smooth over the top so they'd fit tight against, and then the hole down the middle.
Yeah, was there an inside job on that as far as drilling the holes in it too? Was there a multiple drill there? I can't remember.
I think I drilled the hole and then across the top, so they'd go to the next machine and they'd be flat. I think that was. Boy, it's been so long ago.
Yeah, it was my experience when the 4-150s first came out. And they're trying to build all kinds of tractors. I mean, lots of tractors. We had a hard time keeping up. And we had to ship some of that Bullard work out to Nashville, Iowa to Hydrotile, I believe, because they had some big,
Could be.
we were hauling, 15 miles to Nashville, something like that.
Remember that they're making Alice Chalmers gear cases too. They're in the foundry.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what they did all to them before they shipped them out, but remember making Alice Chalmers gear cases.
Like rear end housing gear cases.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And they had a different color coating on them. It was more of a reddish, like we were talking yesterday. On the deer stuff was a different color.
Mm-hmm.
Glycol or glycoat or whatever they call it. Well, they had a big parking lot,
Yeah.
but it wasn't big enough.
Yeah.
If you weren't there early and you were coming in on second shift, there weren't any parking spots. You had to park
Yeah,
a block or two north of the plant
yeah.
and walk. Well,
Yeah. However it took to get there, yeah, you had to do some walking sometimes.
That's what they were telling me yesterday is a shift change. If you came in on second shift, you had to park your car off on a side street until the parking lot got empty, and then you went back out at break and moved your car onto the
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah,
yeah. Yep. Exactly.
yeah.
And in the wintertime, they had what was that? Old 77 Standard that they had a generator and a bunch of batteries on it that they would use to jump the
Car.
tractors. Well, the tractors out, main use was jumping the tractors out in a lot in Cleveland to get them started to ship them. But when it was super cold, they M&R had that maintenance repair had that tractor, and if you had trouble, they'd come and jump you. But you had to be careful because I've seen a lot of alternators and stuff get burnt out because of the surge that sucker had.
Yeah.
Because it was hot. Ups and downs in what we did.
Yeah, like Dick Lincoln and I know Dave Marley, you know, he got really shafted, you know. He spent most of his career in the foundry, and then when the place shut down, they got hosed on retirement money. I don't know how that exactly happened, but
Well,
they
when
got shortchanged on their retirement.
when they
pension or
changed
whatever.
hands, that retirement fund was an asset that went along, but then they separated that asset off. That's my understanding.
Yeah, well, anyway, I know they weren't real happy about it. The guys that had, you know, put a career in with Oliver or White. I don't know how long Dave was there. I bet he was there probably 30 years, maybe more.
Yeah.
You know.
There were a lot of people in that.
Yeah, and there were a lot of
Cliff,
Stacyville
Cliff.
guys, and a lot of the Stacyville, the older next generation up. They spent a lot of time down at White. That was the big place to work back then.
Well, it was a good place to work. You know, the pay was
In the
good,
old days,
benefits
yeah.
were good.
Yeah, they had some insurance, and wages were probably 3 times higher than the window factory here in Osage, where I worked before that. So you want me to start talking, or
Yeah, go ahead. We're
are you recording?
Yeah.
Well, the first thing I'll say is this watch band, I bought that down there because it was OSHA approved. We couldn't wear any jewelry and stuff, and you had to have short sleeves when you worked because I was on my turret lathe. I never wore the watch there, but I thought that was kind of a neat band, and I still have it. It's stainless steel, and it was OSHA approved because it would come off and wouldn't pull you into a machine. See, but so that's left over from White. I dug it out of the closet years ago, and I had a old Timex I put on it for when I was working outside or something. Wanted to know what time it was. So that's a remnant of the experience there. So I worked in the short run shop. It was called the short run shop because that's what we did, a short run of parts. Sometimes we had maybe a half a dozen parts, repair parts for tractors. I run a turret lathe. It had 15 horsepower on the chuck and 5 horsepower on the feed. I think they called it a 6-station turret lathe because it had 6 tools that on the turret you could run your drill and your bores and your counter bores and everything else all set up. Those machines were really old. I think they were built probably before World War II.
Were those some of them still had the government property tag on them, or were they pre that yet?
I don't remember that. I just remember they were really old and a lot of things weren't real tight and fitting, and you really had to compensate, for different things. But we made it work. Like I said, I had 15 horse on the truck and 5 on the feed, and we did just repair parts. The building I was in, I don't know what building that would have been, but there was I remember the tool crib was just almost right next door to my turret lathe, and there was heat treat on both sides, and I know they put engines together on the it seems like it was on the south side by the heat treat on the south side.
Yeah, you were kind of near that main alley that went up through. And then the little office and the big tool room was right to your west.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I know when I come in, I could park out there by the depot and walk in. You had to go through one building to get to that one. I think the brooches and everything were in that first building, and then was in the second building. And but some of the parts I remember were kind of oddball things that you remember. Some of the average, pulleys and stuff you don't remember. But one time we had steering wheels, steel steering wheels. I don't know what they were for. Something Oliver or white, and we had to get them in the truck and bore them out, and drill them and bore them and face them off and get them ready. And the other thing was bull gears. One time we had some bull gears to do for. There was an old Oliver crawler tractor is what they said it was for. Probably from back in the 20s. It was really old.
Cleat track? Cleat track? That'd have been cleat track.
It was something old. I never knew exactly what it was for, but they said it was it was a bull gears for an old crawler tractor. They did not have a mold to pour the steel in. So it was what they said it was a hand-hammered block of steel. And that's what it was.
Big billet, yeah.
That's what it was. It was not round. It was, it was
Very roughly formed.
Yeah. It's just like something you got some clay here and you put this thing together. But it was probably about this big around and probably about this thick, 4.5, 5 inches thick. And it was I don't know what the number of the steel anymore, whether 30-10 or they had different numbers for the strength of the steel, but it was the good steel, and we had to drill it and tap it because it was about 70 pounds, and use an overhead hoist to get it in the chuck. And there was so much of that had to be cut off to get down to a bull gear that it would take about 8 hours to do 1/2 of it. It was that much. By the time you
skim cuts. Yeah.
You just got it faced and drilled and bored and counterbored and what do I want to call it? What do you you have the outer rim of it's not the. If it was a wheel, you'd call it the spokes, but inside the gear,
okay.
You had to cut all that down into face all of that out of there. And I know when we got done with them, they were probably around 15 pounds of steel left.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I mean they were just.
You hauled a lot of
chips. You had to cut that on a gear.
Recess.
Yeah, you had to cut that all out of there. And there was hardly, it was just, maybe 15 pounds of steel left when you got done.
And they sent that up to the Hobbs
heat treat, Hobbs and heat treat and finish it off. That's one thing I remember.
Did you do any like Minneapolis molding parts, that kind of
I
stuff?
couldn't answer that. We probably did. They just send us parts and we had to do it. The thing I liked is we got to do our own setup on the machine. We had to get the part.
Lots of times you didn't have they didn't have tooling, you had to figure it out yourself.
Sometimes they did not have tooling. If it was a certain job, they'd bring us a blueprint and a list of what tools we need, and we'd go over to the crib and get the tools. Or sometimes they were in our we had a little cupboard down below our toolbox there that sometimes certain tooling was used on a lot of different things, and so we had that handy. But we got to set up our own machine and get it running, and then it had to be inspected. The part had to be inspected.
After each operation, or
no, before you got to run the rest of the parts. When you made that first part, you called an inspector over. I remember the two inspectors there because I got to know them quite well over the years that I was there. Kurt Clifford from North Springs and Wayne Shanklin, I think he was from down around Nashville somewhere. But they'd have to come over and check it out with the micrometers and check the run out on gears and stuff. And we were making stuff, had to be within 1,000th of an inch or sometimes half a thousandth of an inch, and not more than 1,000th or 2,000ths of an inch of run out. When you spin that wheel, you
can't wobble.
Can't wobble at all. 1,000th of an inch, 2,000ths of an inch max. So it was precision work, and I enjoyed that. After I got the machine set up and running and okayed, I didn't care to run them anymore. Then it turned into a job. The first part was a kind of a challenge to get it up and running and done right, and then after that, then it became a job. But it was real good at first because we didn't do many parts. But then later on, when they started shutting the place down, they started bringing up cast iron from the other end, and you run the same.
Good, cast iron's good.
Oh, terrible, terrible, dirty stuff to work with. The dusty and do you remember the Black Knight down there?
Well,
the guy they called him the Black Knight.
Cast iron all the time.
Yeah, he was Black Knight. He was always black from all the cast iron, and but they brought that up, and then it really turned into a kind of a lousy job because you run the same parts for 2-3 weeks.
Well, that's what
there wasn't any fun.
Stuff down on the other end was always running production run.
Mm-hmm.
You liked the short run stuff.
Yeah.
That was more of a challenge to get it done. Now, you probably weren't on piece rate.
No.
You were on hourly rate,
mm-hmm.
just because of the
nature
all the
of
setup
the beast.
time involved. Generally,
Yeah.
lots of times setup time was quite substantial.
Oh yeah, I mean, like these bull gears, sometimes we had to grind our own high-speed steel tool to get into a certain part at a certain angle or whatever. So yeah, it was. I liked the challenge more than the job, I should say. But it was a job at the time. I don't know what we made for money, $6-7 an hour, $7. I was on third shift, so I got a third shift premium there for a while. I was on third shift for I think 13 months, and then I got on days because somebody bid out of there. But I got laid off in 75, sometime in 1975, and never went back. Never got called back, so they just went downhill from there, closed her up.
Yeah, there were signs back then of the impending doom.
Oh, I'm sure, you just hear rumors, you don't really know what happened, but what I was told was that when White bought them, they invested the money into the trucking industry, and then that all kind of went south with the fuel shortage or something. But whether that's true or not, I don't know.
That's basically the short version of the story. There's a long version, but we can sit here and argue about that for hours.
Oh, I'm not going to argue about anything because that's history. I don't need to know. But what some of the old timers told me, is that the tractors always made them money. And when you take that and invest it in something that's not going to make you money or it's going to lose you money, it's not a good thing.
Well, you siphon money off from one side of the business to prop up the other side of the business. It's not prospering. You're asking for trouble. You're bringing both assets down.
Yeah, it's dangerous. You don't want to, shouldn't be doing that. But I guess I don't have anything else really to
So when you were
talk
running
about.
when you were doing short run parts, did they basically, when they needed something, they just brought you a print and said, "Here, make this"? It's not like.
Well, they would have the part, the casting, and they'd bring it over. One of the forklift operators would bring a pallet over or a tub, whatever it happened to be, and set it by our machine, and then there would be a blueprint and a tool list, or tooling list, what you needed for that job, usually, and. But like I said, sometimes you had to make some of the tooling for certain jobs yourself with high-speed steel, or go into the tool bin and have somebody in the tool crib make what you needed, or grind it to a certain angle or whatever. But yeah, for the most part, and then like I said, I was on third shift, and it was always hot in there,
Between two heat treat lines, I can believe it.
Heat treat, especially in the summertime, you get in there. But third shift was the good thing about it was that all of the brass was gone for the day. You get on day shift and all the big wheels are crawling around and
You were
looking over your
right
shoulder.
up next to where the office was, and
Yeah, they all come.
Everybody come through there all the time.
Yeah, they come walking up and down right beside your machine all the time.
So you would have been, if you were in between the heat treat line, that meant you would have been on the foundry side of E Street.
No.
Or no, heat treat was on this side, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, I was on. Like I said, we pull in by the depot there and park and then.
The layout kind of confused me because you think
if I seen a
be...
blueprint of the buildings, I could tell you where I was at. But I know we had to come in be the west end of that operation, and then had to walk through by the broaches, because there were broaches machines there, and then into the short run shop. And I know the tool crib was just to the right next door to me. Yeah, almost right next to me, and then. There were a couple of vending machines down a little ways, about 50 feet away, and stairs going up to the bathrooms upstairs. One of the guys who was farming in the daytime and trying to work third shift at White at night, the foreman would have to go up and wake him up all the time because he'd go up and sleep in the can when he was supposed to be working.
I never did that.
Yeah. Well, this guy did it quite often. Yeah, it was kind of irksome to the rest of us who were working, and he wasn't.
Well, yeah.
When I go out and spend an hour or two in the can and get paid for it, that's...
Yeah, being an hourly wage, yeah. If he was...
If he was on piecework,
that's
tough
him.
rocks.
That was on him.
Yeah, it was on him, but we were on hourly. So, hey, you got any more questions for me? I can't really think of anything else. I said it was very warm in there, especially in the summer, and they'd open all them windows and everything, and it'd still be really hot in there. But
well, you look at the facilities they had down there, some of those buildings are from the 20s.
Oh, heavens yes, they were ancient.
And, heating efficiency. There was no cooling. There was no fans. Like you open the windows and let be a thermal siphon heat.
Yeah,
up out the top.
They had them. I don't know what you call. The buildings like this, and then up, and then out, and those windows were at the top there, and
they're sawtooth.
Did you remember? Do you know a guy named Ron Rice? He did run a judo or karate thing in Charles City too for quite a few years. I don't know. I'm sure he's probably not there anymore, but he worked on the machine right behind me. He was kind of a fun guy to work with. And there were 2 or 3 from Stacyville. 2 for sure that I remember. Bob told me, and Leon Hackenmiller. They both worked in Short Run on third shift with me. I do remember that.
Now, in Short Run, they had mills too, didn't they?
No, I don't remember milling. They had drills.
Okay.
They had drills.
I thought they had a little bit of everything.
Well, they might have had.
You could take a piece, and if you need to have a surface milled for starting point, and then
I don't recall any milling machines. I do remember drills. There were a lot of drilling. Some of them were multiple
drill. Yeah.
But because I think that's what Tomey and Hackenmiller did. I don't recall what else was in there other than that. Yeah, it was. I just like that challenge of getting the machine set up and running, get that first part approved, and then I wanted to go home. But it was interesting work to make precision parts like that.
Well, and if you weren't really familiar with it, you learned a lot as far as machining processes go, and some of that filtered on and helped you throughout the years now and then.
Yeah, I know we had, these carbide tips that we used on the tooling to cut steel with them. I forget the name of the
Kennametal.
Well, the ones before that.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Because Kennametal come in with a big, oh yeah, we can improve your speeds and all this and save you all this money, and their carbide tips were crap, terrible. You'd use 3 of them to 1 of any of the other one. I forget the name of the other ones because I wasn't there very long before they went to Kennametal, and they were just terrible. And they tried to run jobs faster than you should.
Yeah, increase speed.
Yeah, and it didn't work because their carbide was junk. But it wasn't my decision, But yeah, third shift. I never liked working third shift. You get all turned around on the weekend. Have to go to work at 11 o'clock on Sunday night. But did that for 13 months, and I said I'd never do it again. I never did. Never went back. Al, I don't think you went back either.
Mm-hmm.
No, never went back. So the post office was work, but it was a good job, good blue collar job. You kind of got to be out on your own. Once you left the office, you were on your own.
Yeah.
Nobody looking over your shoulder or anything.
Not like today where everybody's got a GPS on them.
Oh yeah, they're micromanaged. It's ridiculous. I wouldn't think about going back there ever. That's not real good.
That's the way a lot of stuff is getting nowadays. Everybody's got to know where everybody else is.
Well, the old saying is, crooks don't trust anybody. So you know who's running it. Anyway, that's probably all I got. Unless you got any other questions, I can't think of much else. I do remember one job that came in there, and it was probably shortly before I left. The engineers, when they come up with that 4-wheel articulated tractor.
Who's got one?
4150.
4150. Well, these engineers or whoever designed this, the hydraulic cylinders that you steered
the
it.
articulation.
Yeah. They said the wrist pins didn't need any grease. No, this is a true story. This is a
They
true
had
story.
a fiber
This was
washer in there or something, didn't they?
they were steel.
I don't know. Mine's greasable, so
Yeah, well, I know they are, because they said they weren't. They didn't need a grease, and of course, when they test them, that thing squealed like a pig in the castration mode, you know. And so they brought them steel tubs, that bring down with a forklift.
Oh, yeah.
You know how big them things were?
Yeah.
This thing was full of them wrist pins. And they'd already been hardened and chromed. They brought them down to Short Run. And I did it for a little while one night, but you had to take that wrist pin and you had to grind off the top to get through that chrome and hardness so you could drill. And you had to do it on two sides so the grease would come out. And you'd go through them, them little grinder, an air grinder, I don't know what you call
Oh,
it.
they have a carbide.
Yeah, they have a little,
die grinder.
yeah, die grinder, that's the word. And so you had to grind through that chrome and hardness on both sides and the top, and then they could drill and drill. So that would, and they'd put a grease zerk in the top where you could grease it, from outside, and the grease would come out in the ends of the hydraulic cylinders. And they had a whole cotton picking tub of these things made. And the little die grinder, that wheel, that hardness and chrome would eat them up. You'd just go through about 3 wheels trying to do one of them. It was just terrible. I did it for a little while one night. I don't even remember how long, but it was just about impossible to. I think they should have DX'd them and started over, but they had a lot of money invested. And
By the time you harden them and chrome them, that's an expensive little part.
Yeah, you bet. So they tried to save them, and they did, I guess. But I didn't have to do any more of them. But that was a real foolhardy thing they did, not to have a grease zerk in them. But
They must have initially tried some sort of plastic bushing or something. It didn't work because
I think there was, and then they probably had to go to a hard or a bronze or a.
yeah, I think mine's got like brass or bronze bushings and then the hardened pin.
Okay.
But both pins on mine are greasable.
sure, yeah, I'm sure they.
And mine's one of the first ones built, so the pins in it probably came out of that tub.
Without a doubt.
He might have.
Without a doubt. If you ever
pin for his tractor.
I'll have to go home.
If you ever have to tear one of them apart, you look and see if there's some grinder marks on that wrist pin.
That'd be the ones that they did.
It'd be one of them. And I don't know if that was the only tub they had, but it was a whole cotton picking tub full of them. And you know
They
how
were
many of
about
them?
3 by 3 by 3 by 2.5 feet tall.
You figure out how many of them wrist pins you could get in there. What were they, about
Probably about
5 inches maybe?
4.5, 5 inches long, and like think like
Probably
an inch and a quarter around
inch and a
it.
quarter, yeah, about that round. You can get a lot of them in a tub. I bet there's over 1,000 in there.
With the number of 4,150 you built, that one tub probably lasted them quite a few tractors. So.
Oh, I'm sure.
Probably it was an economic ordering situation where they had a bid to make so many pieces, and then that would last for a year rather than spending X amount every lot number that came through.
Oh, sure. Yeah, they were projecting out production for probably the next year or 2 years, whatever their figures told them to do. Yeah, that was John Ross Sr. was what do you call him? Foreman, supervisor probably. Yeah, because we had a foreman right in our area, and then he would come walking through once in a while to get a cup of coffee. John.
Yeah.
Number 1, John.
Yeah.
There's 3 John Rosses in the family. John 1, 2, and 3. 2 worked with us at the post office, and his son John works for Mayor Digging and owns part of that operation out there at Sinclair. But he worked there. I think there's an Engelhardt, I think was the first supervisor on third shift. And then we had one foreman there. He was from Chicago on third shift for a while. Older gentleman at that time. He was probably 70 years old at that time.
Wow.
He was telling us how dangerous Chicago could be.
You felt so safe in Charles City then.
Well, used to be. I don't know about today.
Yeah, lots of things have changed.
That is for sure. I don't know what they use a steel steering wheel for.
Was it was it cast or was it?
It was
like a
steel.
forged?
Yeah, it was a steel steering wheel. It was all the spokes and everything, but we just had to work on the
Hub of it.
the mounting, the hub. Face
Was the
that
rim
off.
of it made out of, was it round stock? Welded together?
No, it wasn't welded. This was a casting.
Oh, that'd go back a long time.
It was a
A
casting.
hard part.
I mean, the only thing I could think of would be if he was making if they were making steering wheel blanks, to have the blanks coated to make regular steering wheels. Because I can't believe that they'd be making, in the 70s, I can't believe that they'd be wasting time making parts for hard parts.
But these were, I don't know, we didn't run very many of them. I don't think we run even a dozen, as I recall, of them. Weren't very many. Like I said, it was a short run, and I don't think we even run a dozen of them, but they were steel. I can remember they were kind of, the hub was kind of offset,
The grips, those bumps and.
I don't remember any grips, whatever. Is there something that required a steering? I don't know.
I mean, there are, but you're talking pre-1920s.
Well, like I said, the bull gears, they said those were like in 1920s crawler tractor bull gear that we had to.
Unless it's one of them deals where some dealer somewhere, somebody walked in and said, I need this part number, and they needed an order of one, but they weren't going to make just one, so they had you make a few.
Yeah.
Which, if that's what they did, then I'm impressed. But it'd be interesting to see a picture of
Those are the two parts that I remember making, and that cast iron. Oh man, I hated those things. Everything was so dirty with cast iron.
Some people you learn to live with it.
Well, I'm sure if that would have been my initial
Yeah, if you've
job,
been there
I'd probably-
first.
If I'd been there first, I wouldn't know any different,
Yeah.
But
Did you run coolant?
there was a guy I don't remember his name, but he ran the machine behind Ron Rice. Were there four of us in a row? But anyway, he always wore a white T-shirt. I remember him now because he always wore a white T-shirt, and that shirt he never got that thing dirty. I couldn't do that. I always had splashing and stuff, but that guy, he knew how to operate.